We couldn't get the records. The firewall was too strong.
By the time they realized something was wrong, she had already been gone for 11 days. No goodbye, no warning, just absence. The money didn't disappear all at once.
How could you let this
That would have been too easy to trace.
We couldn't get the records.
Instead, it just stopped arriving.
They saw us coming.
Routes that had worked for 3 years started failing. Shipments got held up at the wrong points. Transfers landed in accounts nobody recognized. And the worst part? Every single trail led back to one of them. Not her. Never her. Her name was Amara. And this is the story of how she made one of Lagos's most dangerous networks destroy itself from the inside without ever raising her voice. Amara Osei was 31 years old and lived the kind of life Lagos doesn't make movies about. Not poor enough to be pitied, not rich enough to be safe. She worked a logistics coordination role for a mid-size import firm on the mainland. Quiet job. Decent pay. The kind of role where you see a lot and say very little, tracking routes, managing delivery windows, flagging discrepancies before they became problems. She was exceptionally good at it. The kind of good that goes unnoticed until something goes wrong and suddenly everyone remembers exactly who kept things running. At home, she had her younger sister Chisom, 23, kidney condition, monthly medication that cost more than half of Amara's salary. There was no backup plan. There was no room for miscalculation. So Amara never miscalculated. That discipline, that particular kind of careful, is exactly what made her useful to the wrong people. His name in this story doesn't matter as much as what he represented. Call him Remy. He came the way these things always come, through someone she already trusted. A colleague's friend. A face at a dinner she almost didn't attend. Charming in the specific way that expensive education and easy money produces, effortlessly, without trying to be. He wasn't selling anything at first, he was just present. Helpful, the kind of man who seemed to know how things worked. 3 months of casual contact before the conversation shifted. He told her what she did at her firm, the coordination, the routing, the discrepancy work. There were people who needed exactly that. Clean, quiet, much better money. Just businessmen, he said.
You know what you do at that firm? The coordination, the routing, the discrepancy work stuff. There are people who need exactly that.
Didn't say
clean,
yes that night.
Quiet,
she didn't
much better
say
money.
No either. She went home, made Chisom's medication list for the month, and looked at her bank balance for a long time. It started exactly the way he said it would. Small, clean, unremarkable, sealed packages coordinated between Lekki, VI, and Abuja. Cash payments, always exact, always on time. No paperwork, no questions asked or answered. She told herself what people in her position always tell themselves: she wasn't the one making the decisions. She was just the one making sure the decisions arrived on schedule. But Amara noticed things. It was the same quality that made her good at her legitimate job. The same names appearing across unrelated routes. The same window of urgency around certain shipments, the kind of urgency that has nothing to do with import timelines. The way certain numbers were always handled by specific people and never crossed over. It took 4 months. Then she understood. This wasn't logistics. This was a network, old, structured, and very well hidden behind a kind of wealth that makes Lagos look the other way. She never saw all of it. That was by design. But over time, working from what she could observe, she built a mental map, Remy was the bridge, the recruiter, the face, the one who kept things smooth between the network and whoever they brought in from outside. Above him were 3 men. She never learned their real names. She knew them by the way decisions flowed, who had to be consulted, who got final say, who could override without explanation. And above them, somewhere she could feel but never quite locate, a woman. Nobody ever said her name directly. That was the first thing Amara noticed. Not that it was forbidden, just that it never happened naturally. As if saying it out loud required a level of certainty nobody in the room was willing to claim. She appeared in references only. In the way Remy sometimes paused mid-sentence before making a call. In the way the 3 men's energy shifted whenever certain instructions arrived, not nervous exactly, but recalibrated. Quieter, more careful about what they said next. She was never emotional, never visible, always observing. And she had been running this network, Amara eventually understood, not from the front, but from a distance so precise it looked like absence. Amara recognized something in that. She filed it away. The shift happened gradually, the way danger usually does. Money started passing through her personal account, not large amounts, just enough to connect her name. Her phone number appeared in records she hadn't agreed to be in. She was asked to hold items she couldn't identify just temporarily, just this once. She said nothing. She noted everything. Then, one evening, waiting in a VI car park, while a handoff was delayed, she overheard a conversation through an open car window she wasn't meant to hear. 2 voices. Remy's, and one of the 3 men. The man said it plainly, if anything surfaced, it would route to the coordinator. That was already set up. Remy asked if she knew. The man said she didn't need to. That was the point. Amara sat very still for a long time after that. She wasn't the logistics coordinator. She was the exit plan. If anything went wrong, FCC, a seized shipment, a leak, the trail they'd been quietly building would lead directly to her. Her account, her name, her phone, her signature on movements she thought were routine. She had been chosen very carefully. And now, she was going to choose very carefully too. She did not confront Remy. She did not panic. She did not run. She adjusted. She became quieter, more reliable, more present. She stopped asking even the small questions she used to ask. She made herself invisible in the way useful people become invisible, by being exactly where they're needed, exactly when they're needed, with no friction and no complaints. They stopped watching her so closely. That was the first thing she needed. The second thing she needed was access she hadn't been given. So she created reasons to need its small problems that required her to see slightly more of the system to solve them. Each time, she solved the problem quickly, efficiently, without any apparent interest in what she'd seen. She wasn't building anything yet. She was studying where to apply pressure. She started with the money. Not a transfer. Not a theft. A delay. A single route that required reallocation due to a flagged discrepancy she'd manufactured. Small enough to be routine. Just enough to move funds through a channel that now had her fingerprints removed and someone else's timing attached to it. She did this 4 times over 6 weeks. Each time, the discrepancy resolved. Each time, someone else had signed off on the reallocation. Each time, The money arrived somewhere slightly different than where it was supposed to, but arrived, and no alarm was raised. Then she began the second layer. She started routing certain decisions through the wrong people. A message that should have gone to Remy that arrived instead with one of the three men's implicit approval. An instruction that should have come from the top that appeared to originate from someone in the middle. Nothing dramatic. Just enough so that when people compared notes, if they ever did, the stories wouldn't match. The third layer was the most dangerous to place. Evidence, not enough to expose anyone, just enough to imply. A single account number, unremarkable on its own, that connected one of the three men to a transaction nobody had officially approved. A phone record that suggested Remy had been in Abuja on a day he'd told the network he was in Lagos. She didn't leak any of it. She just made sure it existed in places where nervous people tend to look when things stop making sense. By the time she placed the final piece, a routing instruction that made the network's largest liquid reserve appear to have been moved on the direct authority of the woman at the top, she paused for the first time in 4 months. Not from doubt. For the first time, she was making a move that couldn't be undone. Every other piece she had placed implicated men who had tried to use her. This one implicated someone who had never directly touched her, never spoken to her, never even acknowledged her existence. But that was also why it worked. Because if the woman at the top was suddenly implicated, even by implication, even by a fragment, the men below her would have two choices: believe she had moved against them, or believe one of their own had moved against her. Either way, they would stop looking outward. She placed the instruction. She had been executing this for 4 months. 4 months of showing up, being useful, being trusted. 4 months of quietly rewriting the architecture of everything they thought they controlled. She didn't leave dramatically. She started by being slightly harder to reach. A response that came an hour later than usual. A meeting she rescheduled once, then twice. A small personal matter she mentioned vaguely that required her attention. Nobody thought much of it. In the same period, the network started experiencing what felt like friction. Small things. A delayed shipment. An account that wasn't responding. A message that one man swore he never sent, that another man swore he received. The woman at the top sent a single inquiry. Nobody had a clean answer. 11 days after Amara last responded to any message, the largest liquid reserve in the network system was simply gone. No transaction record that made sense. No clear authority. No trail that didn't loop back somehow to one of the three men. Or to Remy. Or to the woman at the top, depending on which version of the records you were looking at. They looked at each other. And the looking was enough. The network didn't end with an arrest. It ended with a meeting that went wrong. Details were unclear. They always are when powerful people need them to be. What was confirmed later, quietly, by people who knew, alliances that had held for years fractured in the space of 1 week. Certain operations simply stopped. Certain people became very difficult to locate. Remy left Lagos within a month. The three men stopped being seen together. The woman at the top, the one who was never emotional, never visible, always observing, issued no statement and made no move. But one person who had been present at the final meeting described it this way. Years later, everyone in that room was either panicking, blaming, or calculating damage. Everyone except her. She sat with the same stillness she always had. Asked 2 questions. Received no satisfying answers. And then, quietly, gathered her things and left. She never asked where the money went. To people who understood how she operated, that was the most unsettling detail of everything that happened. Not that she didn't know, but that she had already decided it didn't matter. Which meant one of 2 things. Either she already knew exactly where it was, or she had expected this outcome long before any of them had. No charges were ever filed. There was nothing clean enough to file. There was just absence. And the particular kind of silence that follows when dangerous people stop trusting each other. 6 months later, a new logistics coordination firm was quietly registered in Accra, Ghana, small operation. 2 employees, highly selective clients. The director's name on the registration documents was not Amara Ose, but the methodology, the particular way the firm structured its routing, flagged its discrepancies, and maintained its records was so precise, so specific, so distinctly the work of someone who understood how systems fail from the inside, that one person who had worked with the Lagos network recognized it immediately. He made one attempt to reach out. He never received a response. The number stopped existing 2 days later. She had not taken everything from them. That was the part nobody understood until much later. She had left just enough behind, just enough confusion, just enough contradictory evidence, just enough money in the wrong accounts so that they would keep looking, keep suspecting, keep turning on each other long after she was already gone. She didn't need to destroy them. She just needed them to stop trusting each other. And some wars, once started inside a closed room, never actually end. She knew that. If this story made you think, subscribe. The next one goes even deeper.